Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting through my website, emailrevealer.com. Or you can just email me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon, where we have all kind of exclusive content. I put up 8 hours of new content every month on Patreon, plus the old member section shows go up there, plus all the shows you hear like right now with no ads. But our archives you can find for free at Spreaker.com. And you go there, sign up for free. You get an email notification anytime new content goes up. Plus, I do a live show there exclusively every Friday night at 8 p.m. Our guest today, okay, he's the author of the book, Beyond the Cabin. And his name is Garret. And you can find him at his website, jaredgarret.com. And he grew up in the cult, the Process Church of the Final Judgment. And a lot of people have been telling me, hey, Ed, you got to get the Garret on your show. He does a podcast, which you could find on iHeartRadio and iTunes and all those kind of places, called Tales from a Cult Insider. And you can check him out. You can meet him in person in February. Life, the Universe, and Everything. I think that's what it was called. I can't read my own handwriting. Mr. Garret, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You got it right, Ed.
Okay, that's in Provo, Utah. You can check him out. Tell us about yourself. Who is Garret?
Well, I am Garret, and it's nice to meet you. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. I am a husband and a father primarily. I also work. I put about 20 to 30 hours a week into my church assignment, and my life is good. I have 7 kids with my wife. I grew up and escaped from this cult, which splintered off of Scientology, got out of it when I was 17, and have had a life of increase and challenge and trials for the last, 30-ish years or so. But I write books, novels, adventure novels, and do my best to make my community stronger, and also still struggle with some things that are probably relics or artifacts, I guess, of the way I grew up. But all in all, life is a pretty great experience for me.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a really happy guy. 7 kids, how did you not be,
I know, right? It's wonderful. And loud.
In the church, too, and being in the church, it's a great way of life. Now, Beyond the Cabin, okay, now it's a fictional, it's a novel, but it tells your real life experiences in the Process Church of the Final Judgment. Both of those things are accurate. It's a novelization of about 10 years of my experiences in this cult, but I compressed the events of those 10 years into about a 4 or 5 month timeline in the book. And actually, it's interesting. The Process Church of a Final Judgment started in the 60s, and it schismed in the 70s, actually the year I was born. And one part of it actually evolved into something that was called the Foundation Faith of the New Millennium, and then later the Foundation Faith of God. And I actually grew up in that section of it, but there were some strong holdovers from the Process Church of the Final Judgment. And it's interesting, actually. I've only recently, in the last few years, started learning what the actual origin of this cult I grew up in was. It's been eye-opening. Yeah. My audience is very familiar with the Process Church because, we've done a lot of shows about it. And I'm sure you're familiar with the work of Maury Terry.
Maury Terry. For some reason, I've heard that name. I wonder if it was mentioned in the documentary I saw a couple months ago. It's all a blur.
Yeah, the series of books, The Ultimate Evil, about his theory is that the Process Church was behind the Son of Sam murders.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's quite a theory. I know people personally who would say, "What? No way," and I would probably agree with them. But yeah, I think I have heard his name in that situation. Yeah.
Now that's fascinating because you have a podcast and no one's called up and never mentioned that to you before.
No, actually, I do every so often get. My podcast is to tell the stories that haven't been allowed to be told. I bear no malice for those folks. They're still around doing something that isn't a cult, doing really good work with animals. But I bear no malice. I don't want anything. I don't want to seek any kind of action at all. But there are times I need to share deep, real things that happened, and so I get a little fiery in that thing. But the idea of the podcast is a positive thing. You're going to tell all these stories that need to be told. But I have had people email me saying, "Dude, don't you even know about these things?" And I'm like, sometimes, yeah, and sometimes this is news to me. But no, I think that, because of my take and the way I'm approaching the podcast, I'm not getting people who are trying to have a bone to pick or anything, you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Now, in the description of your book, it talks about how angry adults who didn't like, and lonely children. What can you tell us about that?
So you're asking about the book that describes angry adults who don't raise their own children? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, what was your childhood like?
Oh boy. Well, how long you got?
No. Yeah, I know.
I have nearly 100 hours. I've got about 50 hours of podcast. No, it's interesting because one of the key kind of tells that an organization is a cult or cult-like thing is that children tend to be separated from the parents. If you look at every cult that's had any kind of press, children are separated from kids, and it's actually a very much still occurring in Scientology, where parental relationships with kids are not encouraged because of whatever reason. I think it's usually because they want to have the focus be on whatever the doctrine is of that particular community or cult. And so what happened for me was I was born in Chicago during the time that the cult was in Chicago. But within a year, the cult moved and headquartered in New York City in Manhattan. And I moved with it. And I grew up with 30 or so other kids, mostly being raised by people who I didn't know, but who I knew because they were in this cult. but not being raised by my mother or my father. Actually, I spent until around the age of 8 thinking that this one British guy who talks like this right through his nose, is a good dude overall. I thought he was my father because he was legally married to my mother, but I found out around age 8 that this other guy, somewhat better looking, to be honest, was my actual father. And that's very symptomatic of the way the children grew up. Not being raised by the family or their parents, not understanding necessarily who their actual parents were, and being raised by people who had joined this cult to get away from a world that didn't seem to have a place for them. So they, in some cases, were a little dysfunctional, and in other cases, more dysfunctional. And, that led to some real problems with the way the kids were raised. But, we moved around with the branches as the cult kind of grew and established branches around the western part of the country. And then all the kids were sent to Dallas by the time I was age 11, which is where the kids center was. They called it the Children's Center. And they called it the Children's Center because they wanted all the kids there, because they'd started a small, tiny little school. And I say school, and I have scare quotes around it when I said it, because there were classes, and we were taught by people who seemed to know the subject more or less. But I think it issued diplomas maybe one time, and they were valid. Otherwise, it wasn't an accredited school. And I did that till I was finished my 11th grade year, and after my 11th grade year, I got the opportunity to get out, so I did, and finished my 12th grade year in Kanab High School in Utah. And life has been changing ever since. And that's kind of my childhood in a nutshell.
And when you left their school and went to a regular public school, were you behind the other kids, ahead of the other kids?
Ahead, actually.
Really?
I think, I'd had an experience, interestingly. So I moved a lot when I was younger, much younger. I did first grade in 3 different public schools, ranging from Dallas and to New York and Denver. And I was a heavy reader from a very young age, partly because that was, what else was I going to do? No, there was nothing else to do. I wasn't interacting with adults in any kind of healthy way. And then later, as I got a little older, I found that books and the stories there were a beautiful escape. I could be in a different world for a long time. And so I was reading very heavily from the age of 6, and that, I think, was a big boost for my overall academic achievement. But I was pulled out of 5th grade after being in a school. For the first time in my life, I'd been in the same school from 4th grade to 5th grade, So actually, there was some stability in my life, and I was so angry at being removed from 5th grade after 1 month and to be sent to this faith school thing that the cult was doing, that I actually refused to do any schoolwork. And this is all getting to a good reason as to why I was academically advanced. I got to Dallas and didn't do any schoolwork, and the leader of the branch of Dallas wasn't a very nice person. She had some mental health issues, as well as the choices she was making to treat us poorly. And she actually came to my room one day and said, "Well, you've been banished to your room, Jared, because you're not doing your schoolwork, and I just want to help you learn how important it is to get your education." And she'd brought a plate of cold beans and hot dogs, and then gave me this weird lecture. And then at the end of it, she said, "I know it's hard for some people. Some folks just don't have the intelligence to do really well, but I know if you try hard, you'll be able to do at least a little better." And I heard her say, "You're an idiot. You're dumb. You don't have the ability." And so thus ignited the fury within me. And from then on, I was top of my class all the way through. And so when I landed in Kanab High School, I actually graduated number 2 at Kanab High School, and found that my overall education was good, but my math education was lacking significantly. Other than that, I was good.
I can't do math either. Don't worry about it.
Well,
neither can my daughter.
I'm in a good club then.
Yeah. Now, growing up as a kid, were you exposed to other? You mentioned these few times that you were in school with other kids in the 5th grade and then in high school. But did you play with other kids outside of the cult, and did you compare your life to their life? Did you go to other kids' houses?
First off, that last question, I never went to another kid's house in my entire life. That said, when we were younger, much, much younger, and when it was more kind of dispersed, there were several branches that moved around a lot, really. I attended several schools, and so I did interact with other kids and, made friends in those school situations, and had some of those stereotypical experiences, girls chasing boys, trying to kiss them, in third or fourth grade or whatever. Bullies here and there. Being a bully, actually, for a half school year, which I'll never not regret. Just a lot of those stereotypical experiences I did have, but by the time I was in fifth grade and put into the faith school thing, there was little to no interaction with anybody outside of the cult at that point. I lived in the same house with about 10 other boys or so, 10 to 11 other boys. And we basically, if we were going to have an activity that required other people, we were going to do it with each other. So there was basketball, which I sucked at. There was yard football, which I stunk at really bad. There was Foursquare, which I got really good at. There were races. There were all kinds of things like that. We put together a scrappy little rocky workout in a collapsing garage, which was fun. But I also spent a lot of my time alone. So again, long story short, yeah, when I was very little, yes, I played with other kids, but never went to houses. And when I was later in life, from about age 9 on, never really even interacted with other youth my age outside of the cult.
Was there physical abuse?
Yep. There was to me, and I know that there was to other kids. There were probably other types of abuse that I cannot speak to specifically because I don't know. But yeah, I had the living crap beat out of me when I was 9.
Just the one time?
Just the one time. There was also a great deal of enthusiastic spanking up until I was, I think I probably hit about 14. That was the last time I got spanked, because after I was 14 or so, I was a little bigger. Not a big person, but I was a little bigger. I'd been working out and punching a bag, and I was strong, and I was meditating, and I would just intimidate anybody who tried to physically touch me. But yeah, for me, I got beat up and a lot of spankings from as early as I can remember till about 14.
What about the adults? Was there any abuse to the adults, physical abuse?
Physical abuse of the adults, I'm not aware of any of that, actually. There was a great deal of emotional and verbal abuse, I guess same thing, really, that I'd witnessed firsthand, actually, in Dallas. And so, for example, the way the cult at the time would fund a lot of its activities was by doing an activity they called funding, in which the adults who were able to do this would go to public areas like downtown Dallas, or at the time when security was different, would go to the Dallas airport, and they would stand there and solicit money for whatever cause they were supporting at the time. Often it was supporting animal rescue, which became their ultimate mission later, many years later. So when they would come back, in Dallas, I witnessed this. These poor adults would come back having worked 10 hours that day, soliciting money of strangers, which is obviously just exhausting beyond description, I'm sure. And they would be yelled at, just harangued by this leader of the branch to do better, to get more, to work harder, to find new ways to fill their buckets fuller. It was unfortunate, but the majority of the verbal abuse was really directed at the kids.
What were the beliefs of the cult? I know that there was different aspects of Satanism. They felt that Jesus and Lucifer were brothers and sisters, and there's elements of Nazism. What was going on?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, man.
What's going on, bro?
there's so much there, brother. So it started, if you don't mind, I can give you a bit of a context. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a quick context of the cult is that it started off at Scientology in Oxford, and these two founders of what ultimately became this cult, Marianne McLean and Robert de Grimston, they got married. They left. They were kind of forced out of the Scientology because they were doing their thing a little bit different from everybody else. They started their group called The Process. They turned it into the Process Church of the Final Judgment, then the Process Church of the Second Coming or something like that, and then it schismed into the Foundation Faith of the New Millennium, then the Foundation Faith of God, and then it dropped all religion in 1995, I think. But that is when it was The Process, what you described about Satan, Lucifer, God, Jehovah, or Jesus, Jehovah, they saw those as kind of different facets of a godlike deity persona that actually were the representatives, in a way, of four of humanity's core personality traits. And some people would lean more towards the Jesus side or the Lucifer side or the God side. And so I'm probably misrepresenting that in some specifics, but that's generally what they believed. And so there, technically, yes, that's Satanist, but in every other way, it's not Satanist, because there's no none of that negative weight connotation with the Satanism. They just said it was all part of who we were as people. There wasn't evil attached to Satanism or Lucifer. It was just different aspects of personality and different aspects of people. But there is no question that they brought on a lot of the myths and a lot of the attitudes, because they wore big black cloaks lined red and purple. Yeah. And they wore these giant iron crosses, and sometimes even wore amulets that were goat heads, which just blew my mind. So I feel it's a little specious sometimes when there would be arguments coming back from these folks that we weren't Satanists, but they kind of wanted to be seen that way. I didn't see it seemed harmless to me when I look at it now, except for that when I saw this documentary called Sympathy for the Devil, ? The True Story of the Process Church of the Final Judgment. I had my skin crawl a lot throughout that one. That was weird. But I was in the Foundation Faith of God, which was what it evolved into after schisming. And it didn't preach any of those kind of persona, Lucifer, Satan things that I recall. It just preached a really kind of plain, capricious God who hated people and only loved the people in this cult. They preached what they taught about Jesus was nothing interesting. They didn't seem to care much for him, honestly. They preached from the Bible, but it was whoever was preaching, they could interpret it however they wanted. When I was 15, I asked one of the adults in Dallas, hey, what do we believe? And he said, well, it's kind of hard to put your finger on it. I said, so what are we then? And he said, well, we're a non-denominational Christian sect. And that is to say, they got so very vanilla and so very afraid of offending any of their possible donors that they dropped anything interesting about them. So I wasn't raised with any kind of central doctrine. I was raised with basic Christianity that evolved a lot from. At a time the cult considered itself born again. We said some funny things during that period of time. Like one time, for about I think 2 or 3 years, on the Sunday celebrations, the leader of the celebration would say, "Okay, I am born again because I can." So, I am born again because I can be better. I'm born again because I accept Jesus. I am born again because I can serve people. And everybody around the room, it would go around the room, and everybody would have to say something and it would have to be different. You get to the kids who really don't care about any of this, and we just come up with something random and try not to get in trouble for it later. But that is the way I was raised, kind of a mutt theology that really made no sense to me and really made no sense to anybody else. It was odd.
Can you clarify something for me? Because you said you would see them walking around with these goat's heads and stuff like that. But then you said that you didn't really witness any Satanism. Was this something you saw in the film, or this is something you saw in person?
Oh, yeah. So when I have memories until I was about the age of 3 or 4, where the cloaks were still being used.
Wow.
The red-lined black cloaks. Some of those heavy pendants. And I never saw a goat's head myself, but the documentary, I think, refers to it.
Gotcha.
But there's no question that they were looking for the theatricality, that they were looking for some of that fun in their mind, I think. Colorful stuff. And, there's another myth, if you don't mind me mentioning it. Maybe you're going to mention it later, about Charles Manson.
Yeah.
So they have done their best to debunk the myth that Charles Manson was associated with them, and for good reason, because he was never a member of the process. However, after the murders and after he was put in jail, they reached out to him while he was in prison and asked him to write an article for their magazine. So, yeah, they can gripe all they want about the association there, but that's what they did. So they brought it on themselves. But he wasn't a member of the cult.
Maury Terry gave me a scanned image of an INS report that talks about the visit with Charles Manson, okay, and also talks about how Sirhan Sirhan used to a party, go to drug and sex parties with the Process Church. Have you ever seen that?
Oh my God!
I'll send it to you.
No, that's fantastic.
I'll send it to you, man.
Oh my gosh! I can't believe I grew up from that thing. That is insane.
It's extremely rare. Very few people have seen it. Now, I'm staring at a picture right now that you got to explain to me. Because you mentioned again, too, I see a bunch of members of, they were doing a faith day. They got George Wallace, the Governor George Wallace, Alabama, sitting at his desk at the governor. You know the picture I'm talking about? There's a bunch of Process Church.
I don't know, but I know about that association.
Okay, and they're standing around. They got pentagrams dangling from their necks. And let me see if I can get in close. Foundation Faith members appear at Alabama Governor George Wallace's office for an impromptu faith healing. What can you tell us?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh so much, but oh my gosh. Wow, yeah, he was associated with them, I think, before.
Really?
He was governor, maybe, but there's always an obsession, and this is very cult-like, too, of really most cults. There's an obsession with being legitimized by having people of note be a part of it. And so from the early days, this Process Church, then the foundation, was always seeking celebrity association so that they could be legitimate and be seen as a real thing. They're still doing that, but now it actually works, and they're not a cult. They're just an animal rescue. So they have a ton of celebrity supporters now. Good job, guys.
Now, the animal rescue, my audience is very familiar with the name of the animal rescue, but if you don't want to mention it, you don't have to. Now, but you actually...
I can mention it.
Okay, yeah, the Best Friends for Animals. Now, you've actually...
Yeah, Best Friends Animal Sanctuary.
You worked on that, building construction for the cages and stuff like that for the animal containers?
Yeah, so what I call it Best Friends version 1. We kids helped build a lot of the original kennels, a lot of the original runs. We actually contributed to a lot of the buildings that were there at the time. This was, from, I don't know, like 86 to 91. So about 5 years of it. And we did a lot of work there, but this was the last time I did any building there was in 91. It's so much different now. It's way upgraded. I don't think there's anything still there that I had a hand in building, except for some of the buildings, but like the people live in. Yeah, 5 years, man. 5 years every summer.
Now, we know that they've got a huge funding. They've got a ton of money, this animal rescue. But I've heard people say that went up there and visited, they said they can't see where the money is going. Have you visited it recently? Can you describe it to us?
Yeah, I can't speak to whether or not I can see where the money's going. I mean, I see a ton of amazing upgrades there, but I haven't been there on the property. It's got to be 3 or 4 years at this point. However, they put that money to good use. The facilities for those animals are amazing. It's really world class, and they've got some world class vets who work on that site, helping those animals, treating them, caring for them. The cat runs are kind of astonishingly rad, and the buildings that people live in are great. They've been kept up well. A lot of them are the original ones that I helped work on. But, they got, I don't know, I could see where all the money would go with all their, nationwide outreaches that they do. They send people all around the country trying to support no-kill and all that stuff. I can't speak to any kind of mishandling of funds at all. I have no idea.
Okay, now when we talk about George Wallace, what are the politicians? And by the way, was he aware of the background? Because they're wearing pentagrams.
Yeah, I don't know. If they're wearing pentagrams in his presence, surely he knows. But again, I don't know about that, and I don't know a whole lot of the folks that they were trying to reach to. I know I did find out from a book called Love, Sex, Fear, Death, written by Tim Wiley, an original founder, that they had almost gotten Allen Ginsberg to join, which just blew my mind. That's a notorious, infamous guy. Other than that, I'm not aware of any other folks that are associated with them, of note, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, George Clinton from Funkadelic was a member.
That's right. That's right. Oh, my gosh, yeah.
And there's a photograph of one of the magazine covers with Mary Tyler Moore. You got to wonder.
There is?
Yeah. But I think she was just walking by, and they stopped her in the street in London and stuff.
Like a sniper sharpshooter shot. That's funny. Oh, my gosh. That's such desperation.
Now, how about, what was it, the Indica Art Gallery in London? What was the connection to the Process Church? Do you know anything about that?
The Indica Art Gallery?
Yeah, the Indica Art Gallery, which is actually where John met Yoko.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that at all. How do you spell? I'll have to get that name down and write that down.
I'll email it to you. When I get.
Oh, thanks. That'd be great.
No, sure. This is great stuff.
This is so fascinating to still be learning things about the origin of my own life. Pretty fun.
Exactly, but it's fascinating to hear someone who was actually there when they're walking by with these robes.
Oh my God!
It's just
I remember a couple of things with the robes. I mean, when I was 3 in Manhattan, we were all in this big brownstone building. I think the group occupied the whole thing, and all of us kids lived in one room essentially. We all slept and hung out in that one room, and sometimes we'd go out to nursery school, but sometimes not. But down on the main floor, if I remember that structure right, is where they would do these big get-togethers on Sunday. And I have very distinct recollections of the smell of incense, candles burning, people in some big robes, lots of swaying, as we sang Sweet Chariot. And I was also baptized by being pushed backwards into a kiddie pool by somebody wearing one of those robes as well. So good memories. Good memories.
I got to ask you before I take a commercial break.
Cool.
Because I keep, I think about my own life, and when I started raising my daughter, different milestones in her life would remind me of my childhood. Now, how did you become, because I know you're a good father, you got 7 kids, you're a good man in the church there. I read a little bit about you. Now, what was there struggles in parenting because of the way you grew up, the way you were parenting?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I mean, for the overall kind of simple policy for me is, if I think back on my childhood and think about how I was raised or how I learned certain lessons, I am going to do the exact opposite for my kids. In most cases, obviously still some kids have to learn their own lessons in their own way. But yeah, everything that was done to me in the vein of parenting or nurture, which there was no nurture, I do the opposite. So there's a lot of affection, lots of physical affection and hugs, lots of sitting down and talking for a long time, making sure my kids have no question that they have someone's, me and my wife, that they can always turn to for love, for a listening ear, someone they can trust. Because, yeah, I didn't have that growing up. And it's still a part of my life, but it's like at the time, my future sister-in-law said, I started dating this great girl who I ended up marrying. She has 6 sisters. She went back to Alaska for the summer after we met in college, and she showed a picture after telling her sisters all about me. Showed a picture of me, and her sister said, "Oh, but he looks normal." So, I mean, what? I don't know how else I was going to look, but yeah, my whole goal has been to shape what I was kind of given and what I was kind of pushed into as a child, shape it into who I want to be and who I think God wants me to be. And it's working out okay. Still some challenges, but it's working out okay.
If I have to take a commercial break, but I have so many questions.
Sure.
I can't stop myself. How did you wind up with LDS? How did you land there with that faith?
Oh, my. Well, that is several days of story right there.
Okay.
But suffice to say, when I got out, I moved into Kanab, Utah. So it's in deep southern Utah. Best Friends Animal Society's headquarters is 7 miles north of Kanab. It's a gorgeous, incredibly stunning area of the world. My father had been encouraged to leave with his wife and their daughter, who was my half-sister, a year or 2 before I finally was able to get out. And when they left, they moved into Kanab because they'd already started kind of reaching out and building a life. When I was able to get out, they let me sleep in their living room, for that school year. I moved out as soon as I was graduating, got my own apartment, but it was just circumstance, I moved to Utah. And Utah was heavily, and still is, very heavily members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so I was immediately surrounded by it. I didn't believe in God. How could I believe in the God I was taught, right? I made a choice to not believe in that. And, I was surrounded by these great kids, these young people who, had their own struggles, but they were open, sometimes quite brazen in sharing their feelings about God and religion. And It got me to go to church one time after inviting me 100 times. And I had no interest at all until finally something happened where God made himself known to me just undeniably. And I reached for some answers after finding that out. And the answers were found in the book of Scripture called the Book of Mormon. And immediately I said, that's obviously what I'm supposed to do. Felt like I got confirmation from Father in Heaven and joined the church and was a missionary a year and 4 months later. And it's just been a ride ever since. And now I'm a bishop of a ward. So, I mean, I'm not going to share the sacred things that brought me there, but there were sacred things that brought me to where I am today.
All right, let's take a little commercial break. We are with Jared Garret. His podcast is called Tales from a Cult Insider. You can meet him in person in Provo, Utah at Life, the Universe, and Everything. And the name of his book is, what is it, Beyond the Cabin. Beyond the Cabin. And we'll be right back with more. I mean, you can find his website is jaredgarret.com. We'll be right back with more Mr. Garret right after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525. 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flight Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. Hey, I forgot to mention Silk City Hot Sauce. Go to silkcityhotsauce.com, and what do you get? If you use promo code ED, E-D, you get 15% off of the greatest hot sauce in town, and also, too, you get a free bottle of hot sauce as well thrown in. silkcityhotsauce.com. We're talking today to Garret from Utah, and he's talking about his book, which is called Beyond the Cabin. Okay, and then you got his website is jarrettgarrett.com, and his podcast is called Tales from a Cult Insider. You can meet him in person in February in Provo, Utah at Life, the Universe, and Everything. Now, let's see. Jarrett, got so many questions for you. You mentioned Tim Wiley, right? Now, one of the things Tim Wiley talks about in his book, he says, we were going around and we were doing these little ritual type things, and we started to see miracles happening. And you mentioned rituals in an article I read about you. Describe the rituals.
I can describe a couple.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, the main Sunday ritual was just any old Sunday service that you would expect. Some teaching, some hymns and prayers and stuff like that with music. But it was always ended with a kind of a revelation, as they called it, or just basically a sermon. Part of that typically was people could go up and say their own personal prayers at the altar. The altar, as long as I remember, was this rather beautiful, pure, clear glass table, very simple lines, and on it were, on one side was a bowl of water, and sometimes there was also a bowl of olive oil, and on the other side was a lit candle, and there was often incense involved. So to go up, people were to go to the altar or table, pass their finger through the flame, dip their other hand finger into the water or the oil, clasp their hands together, and then they would offer their prayer. And people would do this sincerely, as far as I could tell, sincerely. I suppose part of it could have been show. That was the most common ritual I saw. But I also was baptized when I was, 3, in a manner of baptism. Somehow several kiddie pools showed up in New York full of water, and I was brought in and made to sit with my back to the kind of the outside wall of a pool, and then I was pushed backwards after somebody said some sort of word until my head was held under the water. And it was held under far longer than I had any desire for it to be held under, contributing to a lifelong fear of water. And, hey, I was baptized. Hey, here we go. I also got to see a couple of times people being admitted into the cult. And this was kind of interesting. I would see these folks brought up, and they would, I think, typically be wearing some kind of robe. I should say that the people who were ministering in these ceremonies were typically wearing either at least very nice clothes, but often wearing some sort of flowing robe, kind of a la the priest and stuff like that. I don't wear that stuff. I just wear a suit to church, but maybe robes would be fun. But people who were being admitted, there was a whole scripted ceremony. So the person who's ministering the whole thing would say something along the lines of, are there any who would like to be joined to the faith at this time? And somebody in the gathered attendees would say, there is one, or there are two. And the person would say, let them come up, or let them enter here. And so they would go up, and then the person would anoint them with a bit of soot from the fire, a bit of oil and water, put their hands on their forehead, say some sort of admitting prayer, and then that was it. A couple of times it looked like they may have given them a little shove on their forehead, so they stumbled backward. And there was often someone standing behind to catch, just in case they were overtaken or something like that. But I don't remember seeing any. I think I saw somebody fall once in New York, but I'm not sure why they would fall.
Now this ritual,
that's pretty much all I remember.
The ritual with the oil and the water and the candle is. Have you studied that and traced it back to find out where they came up with that, or is this something original to the process?
I haven't studied where they got that. It seems real. I mean, it seems like a fairly kind of ancient Christian type of thing. I mean, altars are all throughout Jerusalem and the people of Israel. Burning things on altars is also all throughout that.
True.
So I'm not surprised by that. And, olive oil, there's some symbolism there with olives and stuff like that. And heck, in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we use olive oil as well to anoint. So I haven't been curious enough to trace it back to its origins in the cult or otherwise.
Now, since you started doing the podcast and you wrote the book, have you heard from any original members of the cult?
Most decidedly, no. I think they know about it. I went to Kanab. I go to Kanab every year for a writers' conference, unless it's 2020, and I teach at it. I was down there last year in November, and I taught at the library there for a bunch of young writers. And one of the young writers, their mom worked for Best Friends. And so the mom showed up when it was over and said, "Oh, my gosh, you grew up with them." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I mentioned who I grew up with, and she's like, "I have no idea who those people are," because Best Friends is just so much different. But she pointed out that she knew about my podcast as well. She'd read the novel. And so I have no question that those folks know about my podcast. I think that as long as I'm not trying to bring them down, they don't really care. Although, I mean, some of them might care, but I'm not spreading lies or rumors or anything. I'm just saying truths. I have to tell you, I got really fiery once in one of my episodes called "I Will Not Be Erased" because, man, it just gets a little grating. You look at their history on their website and you look about interviews from the original founders, and not once are 30 kids mentioned. Not once are 30 kids who were brought over every summer to help build version 1 of Best Friends mentioned or thanked. It's like we didn't exist. I'm not into that. I want voices to be heard. I got to tell my stories.
It's interesting because I've heard from them. I've done many, many shows on this topic, mostly on the Son of Sam aspect and the connections to Manson, Scientology. And I heard one time from a member, and he says, well, don't worry, they like you. He says they like you because everyone thinks you're a good father, so they like you. So okay, now
that's glorious, man.
Maybe that's why they like you. Okay.
Maybe. I was blacklisted though once.
As a child?
Yeah, well, sort of. So I got out. I went to Kanab High School and went and graduated number 2, real close to number 1. It was a tense thing for some folks. I didn't particularly care. I was told that I had to speak at our graduation, and so I planned to talk. I let off with a joke. I said, "Hey, I was, you don't know me, most of you. I was born in Chicago, but was moved to New York by the time I was 1. Come to think of it, the Navy lying to me, and it was for me a funny joke. How do babies know?" But apparently that made anybody who was in the crowd from Best Friends, which was young at the time, it just tipped them right off because I was implying that they were liars and all this stuff, and I was revealing things about their past. So I wasn't allowed on the property for at least a year. And my mother, who I only spoke with every couple of weeks at that point, she didn't speak to me for that whole year. So that was good times.
When you were in New York, growing up in New York, with this cult, did you ever go to any parties or visit a big giant mansion in the Hamptons on the beach?
I feel like Gandalf. I have no memory of this place. No.
I do not recall.
No idea.
I do not recall. Sometimes I
don't recall.
Okay. I sound like one of the Watergate prosecutors. Do you recall? I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I have memories of things in New York. We went to nursery school, and I remember walking down the street and seeing, lines of laundry drying way overhead. But nothing like that. We lived in a city called Narrowsburg after leaving the city. And we have lots of photographic evidence of us kids looking quite feral, right out of Lord of the Flies, which were pretty fun, but nothing Hamptons-wise.
How old are you?
I'm 46.
46, okay, still a young man, okay. And you say you have pictures of a bunch of kids looking disheveled?
Well, somewhat disheveled, but mostly looking kind of like we're a little feral in that we're out there, we're goofing off. I mean, my kids look feral when they're in the lakes for a day.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a Lord of the Flies kind of feeling to it. Maybe it's because they're black and white, but we have quite a lot of photos from back in the day. One with my oldest brother, a couple with my oldest brother, who I worshipped him. I worshipped the ground he walked on. They're fun, We've all got hilarious haircuts, and mostly the dudes are shirtless and stuff. And it brings back some good memories.
What about the parents? Did they look like hippies and the adults?
What's your question about the adults?
Did the adults look like hippies, you know?
Oh, yeah. Every picture of my mother, from before she was even in the cult, she looks like a hippie. Long, straight hair, necklaces, very flowing clothes, lots of cigarettes. She was. I believe she was a hippie till the day she died. Honestly.
And what is your relationship with your parents?
Well, when I got out, I think it offended my mom, who I called her Magdalene growing up because she was my mother biologically, and as far as I knew, the way she treated me was like mothers treat sons. But no, that's nowhere near what mothers are supposed to be doing with their sons, and daughters. So, I'd see her, she'd say, "God bless you, Jared," and I would say, "God bless you, Magdalene," and we'd get a hug, and that would be that. And then my dad, I grew up calling him Enoch because that was his name in the call. His real name is Bruce, but he, my mom passed in. Let's see, let me get this right here. In '99, 2 weeks after my wife and I moved to Japan to teach. And I knew she was going to pass. She was suffering with cancer for years and years, and I administered to her a little bit before we left and was able to visit with her, say goodbye. But it wasn't a particularly close relationship. It was as close as I think we could be, given the way I'd been raised and our relationship to that point, but we weren't close. My dad, I'm much closer to. He's been out for years and years and years. He raised a daughter with his wife. She is a magnificent young lady with a husband and a beautiful kid. My dad lives in Salt Lake City. We see him fairly regularly. Right now, he's in his 70s, so we don't see him physically much, but we see him online. And he's a doting granddad. He loves us to death. He's proud of us. He's proud of me for kind of transcending the crap that he feels guilty about, but I wish he'd let it go because I'm good. I wouldn't change a thing in my life. But we're good. We have a good relationship. I can't say that we're close because I don't see anything near like what I have with my oldest son, who's 20, and my next, who's 18. I don't have anything near like that with my dad, but we're as close as I think circumstances will allow for now. We'll keep working on it.
I got so many questions for you, but real quick, because we only have like 2 minutes. And I would love to ask you what was your parents' relationships like with their parents, but we have no time. I know. I got great questions, man, but we got no time. But let me ask you a question real quick. Now, your dad, though, was involved in the original process, the process.
So, yeah, my dad joined when it was the process. He wasn't one of the original founders. He came in probably in 71 or 2, I think. I think it was 71. So it was around for several years in the U.S., or rather in the U.K., and then later in the U.S.
Do you think he would do an interview with me?
I think it's unlikely. I think he's good with the door being closed on his past.
Okay. Well, listen, my friend, we're out of time, but I really enjoyed this. Our guest today, JaredGarret.com. You can find him there. The book is called Beyond the Cabin. It's written as a novel, but he's written many, many books. Real quick, describe your other books.
I've got, I have to mention, thank you for bringing up Beyond the Cabin. I just wrote the sequel that I never thought that I'd need to write for Beyond the Cabin. So Beyond the Cabin ends rather abruptly. It's got a great, satisfying ending, but I've written a book called Beyond the Faith, which is the character's departure, and it absolutely parallels my own. Other than that, I have a series of Mesoamerican fantasy. I write crispy clean, squeaky clean adventure fantasy and science fiction. So for all ages, for all genders, people who love reading will love my books because they're heroic and fun. So I've got this Mesoamerican fantasy that's like Tarzan, and I've got a futuristic science fiction sci-fi kind of cyber thriller. The first book is called Beat, the second one's called Push, and then I've got kind of a modern prophecy fulfillment superhero origin story called The Seer, about a guy who picks up a relic and gets powers. It's all just very clean, adventurous, heroic stuff, because that's what kept me sane.
And don't forget the podcast, which is Tales from a Cult Insider. Google that. You can check out our friend Jared Garrett's podcast as well. Thank you so much, Jared Garret.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good night. And now a word from our sponsors. OppermanReport.com. Hey, do you like what you're hearing? Do you like the work that you see us doing here at Opperman Report? You can support that work by becoming a member at OppermanReport.com. And as you have access to over 200 exclusive shows and interviews that you can't find on YouTube or Spreaker or iHeart or iTunes or KYAH. You can't find them anywhere else online, exclusive to our member sections, to our members. Also, too, there's images, videos, documents, court docs. And don't forget, you can hear your ad played here on the Opperman Report, reach hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis because the show is repeated every day all over the world. Contact me at oppermanreport@gmail.com and I'll give you a good deal on advertising rates.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. PureSoapFlakes.com. 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.